Hi peoples and welcome back. Oh, that was nice, weren't it? Hello everyone, and I'm just going to rub my eye. Start that again. I won't cut it though, I know what I'm like. Hi peoples and welcome back to The Library is Open. So I hope you've brought your... less space for you to say it there. If you didn't say it, it's library card. I hope you're doing good. Today is a Sunday evening in September. It was a Sunday in September, the day that my lover left me. No, that's not true. I was just doing a bit of acting there for you. But I wanted to get this up because, exciting, I got tagged in my first ever tag. Now, normally for these video tags, you know, nobody ever tags me, which is no tea or anything like that. That's absolutely fine. But the absolutely delightful Charlie, whose channel is Charles Heathcote, writer and vlogger extraordinaire, tagged me in this tag, and I thought, well, I'm just going to have to film it immediately, aren't I, and share it with my peeps, my fellow librarians. So this is the vegan book tag, which obviously, you know, I'm vegan, and I was, as I say, tagged in this by Charlie, whose channel is linked below, and but I believe the tag was created by Dane Reads, who I don't follow on here. Again, no shade or tea, I'm not familiar, but I will also link his channel below and give him a subscription because I think this is a really exciting tag. So if you don't know what a tag is, basically you get a series of 10 questions, and in terms of BookTube, you respond to the questions with a book recommendation that kind of fits the prompt of that question. So I think this is really, really fun and could have basically been written for me and all the other millions of vegans who also read around the world, but I digress. But yeah, let's just jump straight in, shall we? Because as I say, it's Sunday night and I've not had my tea yet. So, right. Question 1, tofu. Name a writer who's super versatile. Ooh. Now, look, I'm saying ooh like I haven't already prepared the answers to these questions. I'm going to go with my absolute beloved, the one and only Dame, Agatha Christie, who is, you know, just an amazingly prolific writer, not only in the sort of golden age murder mysteries we understand it, but also in terms of spy and espionage thriller, plays. You know, she even did a sort of, well, it was a kind of golden age mystery set in ancient Egypt, the Death Comes as the End, I think it was called. So, and also a poet, a children's writer, and an autobiographer. I don't know if I'm using that correctly, but let's just decide that we are. So I'm going to say her, but also the reason I wanted to mention this was because she wrote one of my favourite books of all time, not actually in the crime genre, but under the pseudonym, which is Mary Westmacott, which was the name that she used when she wanted to write sort of non-crime novels and didn't want to sort of confuse her audiences. And that one is called Absent in the Spring, which obviously is a line from one of the sonnets by Shakespeare. A little bit of trivia, it's when I was at drama school, we had to do sonnets. We were assigned sonnets and I got Absent in the Spring. But I just think, I mean, this is a beautiful novel about reflection and about this woman called Joan who gets, I think her train breaks down, as I recall. I could just read the back, couldn't I? Yeah. Yes, no, there's a flood and she gets isolated by some train tracks. And she sort of has to reassess her life and really deeply reflect on who she is and who she has been as a person. And, you know, sort of looking back on those relationships and decisions and choices that she's made throughout her life, she starts to get a little bit uneasy about the gap between what she perceived to be the truth of herself, her life, and who she actually is. Yeah, so she becomes increasingly aware of what that gap is, which I think is a really human thing, isn't it, in terms of that. But what I love is the fact that somebody who wrote that could also write, you know, what I would argue to be the genre-defining of the time mystery novel, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Again, no spoilers, but it really changed the game, I think. But then again, maybe that's not so different. Maybe that's not so, unbelievable, because actually in both instances, they're a lot about human psychology, aren't they? Am I set up enough? Yeah. They're a lot about human psychology and a lot about what makes people tick. and they're just applied differently. But I do think she's very versatile as a writer and a kind of what would be the word, a student of human nature, if you will, as was her beloved Miss Marple. So, you know, Agatha Christie for Tofu. Special mention to Hilary Mantel as well, who I think is also an incredibly diverse and versatile writer across, you know, a wide variety of subjects. I reviewed Beyond Black on this channel, but I've also read An Experiment in Love and another one that I can't quite bring to mind at the moment, and they were all very different but equally compelling. So there you go. Question 2, nuts. Name a book that was batshit crazy. Not my words. Don't demonetize me. Oh, I don't get monetized. Never mind. I'm going to go with Milkman by Anna Burns. And it's actually not that crazy. It takes a while to get into the way that she's chosen to write, but it's a beautiful book. So I'll read you what it says in the blurb and I'll tell you what it's actually about. So in an unnamed city, to be interesting is dangerous. Middle sister is busy attempting to keep her mother from discovering her maybe boyfriend and to keep everyone in the dark about her encounter with Milkman. But when first brother-in-law sniffs out her trouble and rumours start to swell, middle sister becomes interesting, the last thing she ever wanted to be. Now, this is a lot about the troubles in Northern Ireland, actually, and that's not what makes it bad, as per the question, but it's the way it's written and the way that nobody has a sort of a first name as we would understand them. That the way the blurb is written is pretty much how the whole thing is written, and there's a sort of beautiful otherworldly elegance to the prose that kind of speaks to the kind of lurking violence in the background, but you just have to get your head around the idea of everyone sort of being referred to in that way, if that makes sense. So it's not really crazy so much, as much as it is an adjustment, but I do think it's worth mentioning. And if it doesn't quite fit this tag, then I kind of think, well, whatever, it's my video, I do what I want. So yeah, Milkman by Anna Burns. Special mention I'm going to give to, just a special dispensation, to 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swan, which is a sort of classic crime novel, but all the characters are sheep, which I kind of think is a little bit batshit, isn't it? But still really rather awesome. Shame there's only 1 book, actually. It could have easily been a series, but I really enjoyed it. So there you go. If you like a quirky kind of crime novel that otherwise behaves as the genre does, then I would go with that. Okay. Question 3, nutritional yeast. I love nutritional yeast. Just saying. Everyone send me nutritional yeast. No, don't panic about nutritional yeast, whatever you do. Name a book that's super cheesy. Aww. So I've selected for this, but I do want to preface it by saying it's not bad cheesy. I don't think cheesy is a bad thing, because I think often cheesy means reliably comforting in some ways, in a kind of Hallmark Christmas movie way. I love the Hallmark Christmas channel, because it's rubbish, but it's good, if you know what I mean. So so there we go. And I've chosen, actually, this is just an example one, but I've chosen the Shopaholic series by Sophie Kinsella, which is, our protagonist is kind of, if you're not familiar with the series, is, don't watch the film, by the way, it's not as good, is Becky Bloomwood, and it's basically, she's a shopaholic, and her adventures, like, around the world in shopping is basically this. And there's a love interest, and later on she finds a long-lost sister who she's at odds with, and then she has a child, and the whole thing basically revolves around the fact that she comforts herself with shopping. Anyway, and why do I say they are cheesy? They're cheesy because they feel good and they're very quick reads, but you always know where it's going. There's never going to be a sort of huge moment of how will she ever get out of this. You always know that she is going to get out of it, and no matter what the problems, they will be surmounted and everyone will be okay. And if that's cheesy, which I kind of think in some respects, or some variations on that phrase is the truth, then so be it. But as I say, it's not bad cheesy. It's via life. There we go. My favourite vegan cheese, just so you know. Question 4, the Beyond Burger. I've never had one of those, actually. Name a book that imitates another book. Okay, I've gone for because I had to squeeze Pride and Prejudice in here somewhere, didn't I? I've gone for P.D. James' Death Comes to Pemberley, which is a kind of continuation, if you will, with a murderous bent of Pride and Prejudice. And it's set like 6 years after the end of the Jane Austen novel, where Darcy and Elizabeth have been married, and they're living at Pemberley, and then they're throwing a ball, and then out of the blue, Lydia, who is the sort of wayward sister who eloped with Wickham, spoilers, played brilliantly by Julia Sawalha in the BBC version, which incidentally is 25 years old this week, I think. It's 25 or 26 years old. No, 26, because it's 1995 years old this week. She turns up at the house basically saying her husband's been murdered and Wickham has been murdered, and then Darcy and Elizabeth basically have to investigate. Now, the reason I've chosen this is not only because it borrows from the themes of Pride and Prejudice. Well, it doesn't just borrow the themes, it borrows the characters, the plot lines, the relationships, everything, which is fine. But it's kind of it's not a pastiche though, because she doesn't take the mickey out of it, but it's almost like in imitation, it not only imitates Jane Austen, but Regency literature and crime literature and historical fiction all at the same time, which I think is a pretty heady mix. And as I recall, I really, really liked this because there are lots of kind of sequels or retellings of Pride and Prejudice. Some are great, some are rubbish, but I thought this was really, really interesting. And I think what makes it interesting is that in imitating the style of Jane Austen, P.D. James doesn't lose her own voice, and it's treated, as I say, with respect, both the characters and the subject matter. So that's what I'm going to go to with that, and it's an affectionate imitation, if you will. So there we go. Question 5, quinoa. I used to always think that was quinoa, because it looks like it should be said quinoa, doesn't it? I went to a stand-up night with to see a poet I know vaguely who asked what was a sign of being middle class, and I think I said quinoa, and got corrected to quinoa, so we know I'm not middle class, don't we? Was there ever any doubt? Quinoa. Name a book that's a good base book that everyone should read. Now, I struggled with this because I sort of thought, well, that really depends, doesn't it, on what you're interested in, because I don't really believe in you should read this. I think you should read whatever you want to read and whatever grabs your interest and transports you. But so what I'm going to do is add an addendum to this question and make it a book everyone should read in my profession. Okay, let's go with that. And you might find it interesting as well if you're interested in theatre or acting or just art in general and how artists kind of process their work. And I'm going to say this one, which is Anthony Sher, who's very unwell at the moment, bless his heart, and is currently being cared for by his husband, Gregory Doran, who is the artistic director of the Royal Shakespeare Company. Year of the King, which was an assigned book when I was at drama school, originally published in 1985. And what this is essentially is a diary of Anthony's process of creating the character of Richard III. And what makes it a great base book, not only for actors, but as I say, for anybody who wants to understand what that process is, what the art is, what the artistry is that it's so in-depth and so considered and thoughtful, but practical and whimsical, but focused all at the same time. And I think it's just a wonderful introduction to the craft of my art. I can't say that without cringing. This is how you know I'm not middle class, because I'm like, my art. But this is a wonderful book, and even if you're not particularly interested, Anthony Sher is a really good writer, and he writes kind of compellingly about his thought processes and his reflections on the past, the present and the future. He talks a lot about apartheid in South Africa in a lot of his books. There are subsequent diaries that deal with his portrayal of Lear, that's Year of the Mad King, Falstaff, Year of the Fat Knight, but he also writes about taking Shakespeare to South Africa in Was I Shakespeare, and he has an autobiography as well, Beside Myself, and I think there are a few others as well, but yeah, I would say Year of the King, Anthony Sher, and that's cheating. Okay, number 6. Name a book that goes well with a cup of tea. Okay, I am going to say... I was originally going to say a Dickens or a Wilkie Collins, because there's something quite Victorian, isn't there, about taking afternoon tea with a novel. But I'm actually going to say this. Not just this book by Donna Tartt, but kind of Donna Tartt's 3 novels, of which there's The Secret History, The Little Friend, and The Goldfinch, which was made into a movie that I don't think is particularly good at showcasing what makes the novel good. So The Secret History is a dark academia book about it. It's about this group of students at a New England college, and they're under the influence of this like classics professor who's really kind of charismatic and, you know, therefore dangerous, and they're sort of pushing the boundaries and exploring the limits of their own kind of intellectual and social selves. And anyway, things end in tragedy and the plot unfolds from there. But why I think these novels, and particularly Donna Tartt's novels in general, are great with a cup of tea is because I don't know really why, but I just sort of remember, and this, I drink a lot of tea, so I could be wrong, but I just remember drinking tea a lot, reading this, and feeling very sort of immersed in that sort of autumnal New England college kind of, what do they call it in America? The Ivy League kind of vibe, which is obviously a million miles away from my experience, and that just that whole thing about classics, and the writing is quite it's not overly complex, but it's not simplistic either, so you really got to pay attention. And there's something about it being a cold day outside, you're sat in a really nice upright chair reading this with a steaming cup of tea near you that just feels right. So a lot of people don't like The Secret History, or indeed any other of Donna Tartt's novels, and maybe that's fair. Maybe she has an acquired taste like Guinness and black olives, but or James Corden, and but I really, really do. And if you're kind of into that kind of thing, particularly dark academia, this is a great novel to read with a brew, as we say up north. Okay, question 7, environmentalism. Name a book that's about our or another planet. I kind of struggle with this a little bit because I don't read a lot about astronomy or other worlds and things like that. I mean, I do, but like not in the context of thinking about them or conceptualizing them as being about planets. So I've gone for this, which I reviewed last year, this absolute behemoth, Lucy Ellmann's masterpiece, Ducks Newburyport, which if you want to see the full review on this, just go to my videos and search for Ducks Newburyport. This is a stream of consciousness in the style of, I guess, Beckett maybe, but also James Joyce, that is basically about everything and anything in the world and nothing. But the reason I mention it under this is because the unnamed protagonist spends a lot of time worrying about the environment and things that are going on in the wider world and if it's sustainable and so on and so forth. And that they kind of really speak to her own anxieties and stuff. So she touches on a lot of things like politics and history and everything like that, but she does keep kind of coming back to the environment, the as it says on the back, African elephants, weapons of mass destruction, how to hatch a wood pigeon egg, you know, anything and everything about life is in here. So this is why I've gone for that. Interestingly enough, Lucy Ellmann released a book of essays that are very provocative that I loved, called Things Are Against Us, which came out recently. So that also kind of touches on similar issues, although it's more politically charged directly than this is. This is a sort of indirect political text. But I would say, yeah, this is a good thingy for that question. Cool. Question 8, animal rights. Name a book that is sympathetic towards animals. I'm going to go with, and I've just brought this book out as an example of the series, but I'm going to go with the Wicked series by Gregory Maguire, which, again, I've spoken about on here before. It's basically Wicked the musical, based on the book by Gregory Maguire, which is a reimagining of L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz, but from the perspective of Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West. This one's Out of Oz, which is the 4th in the series. The others are Son of the Witch. It's Wicked, Son of the Witch, A Lion Among Men and Out of Oz. And I think there is a spin-off called Tales Told in Oz as well, but I've never been able to find it. And I wouldn't necessarily say it was overly sympathetic explicitly. It's more implicit in the text, in the sense that animals are a big part of the world of Oz, but they're also given human features and the consciousness we're saying, morals and so on and so forth. And you know, a big part of the plot line, particularly in the first one, is the taking away of animals' rights, which is intended to sort of mirror human rights abuses, but also obviously animal rights abuses in the wider world, in the actual world that we live in. So, you know, there is a lot in there about justice for animals and other species, and sort of this anti-speciesism, which, as you know, is a huge part of the vegan, I don't want to say agenda, fight. Let's say fight. Fight's a better word, isn't it? Addressing speciesism. And yeah, so that's kind of a plot line that runs throughout the 4 books. Like, there's a thing where the animals are being, like, their right to speak is taken away, and so on and so forth, like that. And Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, actually, that's a big part of her motivation to sort of destroy the wizard's stronghold over Oz. So I would say that is both a motivating factor and a constant theme throughout. So, Out of Oz, or The Wicked Years. Okay, question 9 is health. Name a book that inspired you to be healthier mentally or physically. Now, I kind of struggle with this because I don't really I couldn't off the top of my head think of anything, but I decided on reflection, well, I had a bath and thought about it, and just had a bath, actually. That's why I'm in my PJs. And I'm going to go with The Hours by Michael Cunningham. Now, I bang on about this is the film tie-in edition, by the way. I bang on about the film all the time to anybody and everybody who'll listen. But I'm also going to go with the book, which is beautiful. And if you're not familiar with it, it won the Pulitzer Prize in, what year was it? 99. And the Penn Faulkner Award as well. Oh, the double whammy. And it's about 3 women in different periods in history who are all kind of affected by the novel Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Now, the character in the 20s is Virginia Woolf, who is kind of wrestling with her own mental health and eventually takes her own life, as we know. That's not a spoiler, we know this is history. There is Laura Brown in Los Angeles, I think it is, in the 40s, who's reading Mrs. Dalloway that Virginia Woolf is writing in the 20s. And planning to leave her husband, and she may also attempt to take her own life. And there is Clarissa Vaughan, who in 1990s Greenwich Village, I think it is, in New York, is mirroring what Mrs. Dalloway does in Mrs. Dalloway, and she's also caring for her friend who is dying, we are led to believe, of AIDS. This might not seem like an inspiring or mentally healthy book on the surface, but actually what it's brilliant and beautiful at is the way that it makes complex thought, both depressive and non-depressive, so valued and given weight and given space and consideration. It's taken seriously, even but without over egging the pudding, if that makes sense. So I suppose that the reason that it encouraged me to, if I'm going to abide by the question, to be healthier mentally or physically, is to give space to those thoughts and feelings that are deemed difficult, either societally, personally, or both. I'm going to say that because there is a great comfort in not dwelling per se, but in allowing thought to be what it is before you assess objectively as you can whether it's useful or helpful to you. I'll just say that. I don't want to ruin the experience of this, but it's in the film. I can't recall if it's in the book, but there's a beautiful scene in the film with Julianne Moore, who plays Laura, and Meryl Streep, who plays Clarissa. Virginia Woolf is Nicole Kidman with a false nose. Just threw that in there. Where they talk about regret and what a human is able to bear and live with before they have to escape, whatever that escape looks like. And it's just a stunning scene. And I think it is in the book, but I can't recall, so don't quote me. But watch the film and read the book. I would highly recommend both. So there we go, The Hours by Michael Cunningham. And the last question is CrossContamination. Tag some friends. Oh, okay. Well, the only person I would have probably tagged in this is Charlie. Because not enough people like me on BookTube. No, I'm joking. I'm a small channel, I get that. So what I'm going to do instead is, and Charlie's already done it, I should say. His video will be linked in the description. So what I will say is I'm going to tag all of you. So please feel free to respond to these questions in the comments. One question, all of them if you like. I will leave all the questions in the description to the video. And let me know what your vegan book tags are. So there we go. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very thought-provoking. It gave me a little bit of bother when I was trying to think of some of the answers, but I suppose that is the point, isn't it? If it came easily, what's the point in making the content? So, but for now, put your library cards somewhere safe, my delightful little vegan book readers, and until next time, I was going to say take care of yourselves and each other, but that's Jerry Springer, isn't it? But until next time, do be safe, do be happy if you can, or do be safe. I've just said safe. Safe, happy, warm, literarily fulfilled. Let's go with that. All right, my darlings. See you very soon. Mwah.